green fields, sunny days, starry nights, and pearly gates. That's how his mother always described Eden to him. A place so perfect that there was no need for desire, for anything they wanted would appear as the thought came to mind. His mother always had a hard time looking at the color red. According to her, a color so violent didn't exist in Eden. Nobody bled in paradise. When they wept, they were tears of joy. Once upon a time, Cain couldn't imagine such a place, but here he stands before the gates of heaven. Just beyond the gold-plated rails stands his mother, blonder than he remembers, with a smile wider than any he knew when she was alive. Beside her is his father. His chestnut-colored hair and strong arms betray Cain's memories. Never before had he seen this strapping image of his father. To the right of the gate sits a podium, and at that podium, an angel. The angel doesn't look young nor old, strong nor weak. A being that's light, made physical. Cain can tell what he looks like, but feels he could never describe him. Given the manner in which he drags his quill upon an open book, Cain assumes he's St. Peter. The sight of an honest angel fastens Cain in place, as it would any sane mortal man. A tightness in his stomach starts working its way up until it's a fine lump in his throat. Like any boy, he looks to his mother for encouragement. He finds it in spades. It's in the way her lips part just enough to sigh, and how she nods her head with such subtlety, he's sure he's the only one to notice. Last and most telling of all is the slight gesture with her hand, a motion for her son to walk forward. Eager for happiness, Cain takes a step. He's stopped by a tight grip on his wrist. He looks, and there he finds his brother, smiling. His hair is still a mess with twigs and leaves, and his clothes are much too dirty to wear to supper. Abel pulls Cain back, then walks ahead of him. Abel strolls right up and passes those gates. Now it's Cain's turn. Yet again he's stopped by a weight on his arm. He looks, finds no brother, but a blade, a small dagger fashioned from the jaw of sheep. Luscious red drips from it with sinful avidity. If he tries to force himself forward, the dagger grows heavier. Red leaks from his hand and dances up his arm, growing tighter as it goes. Horrified, Cain watches his family stare out at him as thin red lines overtake his body, pulling him towards damnation. Because nobody cries in paradise, they just watch.
Cain. 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 You all right?
I'm fine, Longinus.
Another one, huh?
Just keep your eyes on the road, not me.
Don't have to keep my eyes peeled. Can't really. But if it gives you peace of mind, then I'll turn my head forward for you. Let me have my excitement once in a while, won't you? Shit gets way too dull in our downtime. You don't want me falling asleep at the wheel, do you? You're way too tense. You need to learn to relax. All that stress throws your aura out of whack, and that shit ain't pretty to look at. Haven't you heard of bad vibes?
Cain shifts his attention away from Longinus and out the window. Rain-beaten glass cools his forehead. The ground's white and the sky's gray, like an impending storm. It looked like winter. A winter made from ash. Turned, charred, dead trees and utility poles alike blur by. It's all infertile land as far as he could see. There's nothing worth salvaging here. Must be why the archangels hadn't done much in the way of realm restoration.
If you're done enjoying the scenery,
Judas's voice rips through the silence.
mind filling us in on who's next on the chopping block? All you said was, we'll handle it, and the details weren't important yet. Well, we've been driving for hours, and I'm sick of playing I Spy with myself. So, can you please spill the specifics? You know, maybe work out some sort of semblance of a plan. Maybe we'll have less of your blood to clean up if we do. I mean, shit! Agente ain't even that high up on the ladder, and he thrashed us the last time. I'm surprised Nephile's even giving us any more leads after that botch.
Always criticizing, never helping.
Agenti won't expect us a second time.
Cain motions towards the horizon as buildings come into view.
Agenti dwells within that ruined city. He's likely to have a legion or two of demons with him as well.
Hold up. Did you say a legion? Or two? How many is in a legion? Hey, why are you being so calm about this? And wait, what? Agenti. Again? Are you kidding me? We couldn't even take him down when he didn't see us coming. And now you're saying he's got extra muscle. Of course he's expecting us. You said this time would be something we can handle. So, how do you expect us to handle this?
6,000 men. What? You asked how many guys were in a legion. I was a centurion, so I kind of know these things.
That is a stupid amount. Hey, Longinus, back me up. This guy's off his rocker for wanting to go up against Hagi, right?
Last time was a fluke. Lucky for us, old Haagen-Dazs won't see it that way, which means he's not going to be expecting a round two. Besides, what doesn't kill us only makes us stronger, right?
Exactly.
Dibs, by the way. You and that butter knife of yours are getting a bit too greedy.
Agenti's mine.
Kane secures his gun at his hip and eyes Judas.
You're good with a crossbow, right? Take him out quietly and reuse the ammo. Far enough. Stop.
Can we trade? You have the gun and I have a crossbow. Yours shoots silver bullets. Mine shoots pointy sticks. I don't want to go back to hell yet.
So how's about you raise some instead?
Longinus laughs and brings the vehicle to a sudden stop.
You know,
He rears back in his seat and looks to Judas.
you can always just try whining them to death.
With that said, Longinus unlocks the doors. Kane takes a deep breath, then steps out of the car. The air brushes against his skin, and he feels something linger in his stomach. It's fear, something that tells him without a doubt he's still alive. He hears Longinus chuckle behind them. A quick glance over his shoulder treats him to the sight of Longinus popping the car trunk and fishing out a long, shabby leather case. Longinus gives it an appreciative pat before hooking it over his shoulder and facing Judas. Besides his case, Longinus also grabs several tactical headsets and tosses one each to Kane and Judas. They weren't the best condition, but they were battery-powered. Kane takes a few steps forward towards a crusty old gateway sign. He runs his fingers along the edge, over indents that once spelled out, "Welcome." One thing on the sign is still visible after all these years, and that's the word, population. Kane can't make out the numbers after that, but he knows not a single soul who inhabited this city is still alive. Fear is often replaced by something else the closer they get towards their would-be makers. Anger. Kane peeks back to see how his comrades are faring. Like with just about every other time they've headed to battle, Kane sees Longinus kissing a small cross he keeps hidden beneath his military scarf. Despite every assumption one could make about Judas, he too prays for their well-being in his own way. Two of his fingers dance from his forehead to both of his shoulders, then end up clasped with the rest of his digits, and he hangs his head for a moment. Kane's been around long enough to know that miracles do exist, but they don't come cheap. So instead of praying to people who won't hear him, to people who won't care, he goes over several names in his head. His family. Each name comes paired with a face and a feeling. All of it mixes with the rage and uncertainty in his stomach, till it becomes a serene brew that forces him forward.
Ready when you two are.
Kane glances around the corner of a building and catches sight of a stout demon standing guard before a nearby apartment door. After a quick glance to Longinus, who nods, Kane takes the shot. The silencer works as expected and the demon dies quietly. Once again, Kane looks to Longinus for confirmation. He signals Kane to move forward.
Judas, get what you need from him, then make him a little more inconspicuous.
Kane says in hopes of finding a bit of coin on the beast. Kane checks the door. Locked. He takes one step back before taking down the door in a single tackle.
Longinus with me.
Kane says as he walks towards the staircase. As he climbs, Kane speaks into the headset.
Top floor when you're done, Judas.
Got it.
Once on the top floor, Kane locates the nearest room and hurries to a window.
This'll be our rendezvous point.
He brushes away the curtain, letting light spill in and temporarily hinder his vision. The clatter of metal on metal brings Kane's attention to Longinus, who dropped the duffel bag he had been carrying on top of a rotting table in the corner of the room, along with the case he had grabbed from the car. He's assembling and loading a small assortment of firearms and holstering each in kind. There's an excited energy about the whole process, but also something somber as well, almost reverent. The man's a warhawk. He lives for this kind of thing. and he always seems to take an odd and disproportionate amount of satisfaction whenever they take a job. There's a glint of metal as he tosses a couple extra clips to Kane without a word. With the contents of the case draped over his shoulder, Longinus walks towards Kane. It looks like an ordinary spear, albeit extraordinarily old. The head is polished, almost pristine, and covered in all manner of Latin scrawl. Their eyes lock, and Kane notices an ethereal, otherworldly glow dying down in those usually faded orbs. Longinus' fist collides with Kane's shoulder as he lets out a disappointed-sounding huff.
A legion or two, huh? Agenti only has a few hundred men stationed here at best. Man, we should leave you in charge of intel on every mission. Maybe next time you'll be telling us we'll have to face down a division of demons. Right, Fatue? Ah, well, just means we won't be here nearly as long, yeah? Which means we can be off to bigger and better fights that much sooner.
Hey!
Judas comes through the door, adjusting his satchel and shaking blood from his hands.
I drained him and propped him up against the outer wall. As long as no one tries to strike up a conversation, we should be covered. So, what's the deal? You find him?
Yeah, wasn't exactly hard. Ol' Hag hasn't changed a bit. Egotistical as ever. Tallest building in the city is lit up like a damn Christmas tree. It's the only place he can be. Only the best for the boss, right?
Good. Find a path that'll give us the least trouble.
Well, most of the ways in on the ground floor are pretty guarded. But there's a small window to the west side with only 2 biggins blocking us off from it.
He walks to Judas and grips his shoulder, giving him a playful shake and laughing.
No trouble for our little puppeteer, right?
Just 2? Easy. I don't mind a fight when the other side's outnumbered. I expect you guys to handle the hordes later on, though.
Now that they've got a plan of attack, the trio heads back out. As they stalk towards their destination, they make use of Longinus' sight to scout out any upcoming threats. By using cars and open buildings as coverage, they safely make it to their terminus. Longinus has said in the past that there's a huge spike in Kane's aura whenever he draws his butter knife, so Kane really has to save his trump card. Otherwise, he might alert Agenti of their arrival. For the time being, Kane picks off a few more guards with the silver bullets. It's a shame he couldn't make better use of them. Just as Longinus said, there are 2 hulking demons standing guard at the door. They wear black suits and thin ties. Even when dressed like men, Kane can see their monsters. Their leathery red skin, darted tails, massive claws, and sharpened horns are dead giveaways. Bullets aren't working on these guys.
Up ahead. Go to work.
Alright.
Fishing an arrow out of his quiver, Judas nods. Instead of loading it right away, he twirls it between his fingers. He lets out a sigh, then stabs the head into his arm. He rips it back out, the point coated in a syrupy red, but no blood leaves the wound. He rears the arrow into the arm-mounted crossbow, takes aim and fires at one of the guards. Direct hit. The arrow sinks into the creature's right shoulder. With haste, Judas raises both arms.
Now, the fun part.
Judas says with a grin. The veins in his outstretched hands bulge, and his pupils flash gold. The demon he pegs starts twitching, drawing the others' attention.
Hey, you okay there? I think you got something in you.
Before the demon can finish, the first one had already smashed his head between his massive claws. Just as a look of shock starts to contort the demon's face, he drives his nails into his own skull, killing himself. Judas relaxes his body, allowing his target to go limp and collapse.
And that's how you do it.
There you go. Not bad.
Be quiet. Let's move.
You go in and give me a few seconds alone. I need a drink.
Once Judas finishes up, they all reconvene within the designated area, a blind spot that Kane assumes must have at one point served as the hotel's kitchen.
Ah, goody. So, what's the plan of attack?
Judas asks while licking blood from his lips with his serpentine tongue.
Split up. We need to clear a path for our escape. When we fight Agenti, we can't have him calling hordes of demons to his rescue. Where is he?
Don't get bossy with me, Chief. Well, we've got some big stuff on the 6th floor, right wing. Looks like room 666. Class act, Hagen-Dazs. But then there's another big signature, moving in that direction from the other side of the building.
Anything else?
Yeah, there's a lot of activity on the preceding floors. If we run up and face Hagenti, we run the risk of getting bottlenecked. Hell, we'll get shish kebab no matter how we handle this.
Right. I'll rush to Genti. You two start clearing the building.
Keeping his pace up, Kane takes the path Longinus laid out. Eventually, Kane comes to a stop before a door. The door looks like it had given into wear and tear long before being forced open. While nudging the door open, Kane puts his free hand on the gun at his side. The long creak of that dying door reignites Kane's fear. After another breath, Kane pushes the door open. His grip tightens on his gun and he draws it as he moves. The next thing he sees makes him go still, like water. A woman sits before Kane, huddled over and trembling. He looks at his firearm, then to her, raising a pistol of her own in his direction. For a reason beyond him, these seconds feel extra long. Then there's a click, and a pain at the center of his forehead. A shot with enough force to throw Kane on his ass pierces his skull. In that moment, like many times before, he dies.
Are you okay, sir? Mister? Please be okay? Please be okay?
He hadn't heard a voice like hers in several lifetimes. A voice woven from sincerity and concern. It leaves him nostalgic. Normally, Kane doesn't come to right away, but he found himself eager to open his eyes, anxious to look upon this woman with the caring voice. In her features, he finds more nostalgia. Her eyes are wide pools of emerald, and her skin is white like milk, with cheeks blushed to a perfect pink. Wild, inky hair rains down from her head over her trembling shoulders. Staring at her, he feels homesick.
Don't be dead.
She whimpers and Kane springs up. His hands stop just shy of her shoulders. She squeaks. Kane's sure this is a woman before him, but her sounds are like something a mouse would make.
You're alive! Thank God.
She sounds so relieved. When the woman reaches for him, he doesn't flinch.
Did I hurt you? I'm so sorry. I thought you were a demon. Your forehead!
He feels her soft palm cup his cheek, and he watches her green eyes search his forehead.
There's not even a scar. You healed?
Different thoughts race through Kane's mind.
She's looking right at me. She's talking to me. She's touching me. And she isn't afraid.
Realizing his mind's veered way off course, he whips his arm up and grabs her wrist. With a tug, he pulls her touch away and returns to his feet. Around the corner, he can hear the sound of clicking heels coming down the hall.
Damn it. Damn gunshot must have alerted him.
Kane brings his hand up and inches his fingers towards his right eye. A dreaded but necessary feeling fires from his chest and through his head, ending right beneath his closed eye. A warm feeling beckons his fingers to dig deeper. He growls as he feels an agonizing and burning sensation trail across his eye. It hurts like hell every time he has to do it. But this is just another part of his curse. The pain told him how much he deserved this life and how far he is from salvation. Gripping at the empty air in front of his eye, Kane opens it at last, knowing that the throbbing sensation has left him with no pupil. With a forceful swing down, a massive weapon appears in Kane's hand. His sword, large, red, and ugly, growls. There's teeth that gnash at the sides of it and rotate along its edges like a chainsaw. Eyes open and close all over the weapon. Pupils darting around the room before focusing on whatever is just outside the door. In the hilt, Kane can feel rumbling, a deep, low tremble he's come to associate with his weapon's hunger. The woman squeaks again. It's not the same as before. This time, it upsets him. He looks back to see her taking tiny steps away. Wide eyes widen further and seem to look past Kane to his blade. He's much more familiar with this look. Seems it took a bit longer than usual for her to feel the effects of his curse. Another small sound creeps from her, the beginnings of something she doesn't get to say, as a surly voice eases into the room.
What do you mean Rome lost his territory to a little girl? He had 30 legions beneath him. How could a mere child... Oh, the Phantom Queen, you say? Don't get me wrong, I'll miss Rom, but he was much too lax about his operation. and his fascination with little girls led him to an untimely end. Now, if this so-called Phantom Queen isn't a poser, and we can get our hands on her, we might be able to use her as leverage. We can have our records expunged completely. That world and this one will be ours for the taking. I'll call you back. There's something I need to take care of real quick.
Kane's eyes widen, and in a swift step, he turns around to cover the woman. Next thing he knows, the room is filled with fire. All he needs to do is feel the heat for a second to know it's magical, but not hellish, in nature. Good. Magic combats magic. Kane runs his fingers along the edge of his jacket's collar, igniting one of the runes. A sphere of light blue aura surrounds the two, shielding them from the flames. As the heat around the sphere dies down, it dissipates.
No! Please! No, 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 no!
Kane looks down at the woman. She pushes him away and looks around the room. Despite the thick smoke surrounding them, she starts running towards the back of the room where she disappears from Kane's sight. He hears her cough. Wait. No, there's two voices coughing. From behind the thick coat of sulfur and ash, Kane hears crying, not like the woman's whimpering. He mentally readies himself before holding out his blade towards the direction the woman scurried. Flashes of red light fly from the sword and illuminate the immediate area before Kane. His eyes widen when he sees the woman again. She's crouched in the corner cradling a bundle of crying blankets. While Kane can't see it for himself, he's sure there's a baby beneath the cover.
Yoo-hoo! Is anyone alive in there?
Agenti strolls in, casual and confident. Clawed hands dismissively brush dust and debris from the shoulders of his indigo suit as his cold, yellow eyes slowly scan the area. He stops, a curtain of dancing smoke obscuring Kane's sight of him. Gripping the hilt of his weapon, Kane feels the blade rip a memory from his mind of its own accord. A passing thought, an image carrying with it a name. Zephyrus. It takes the thought hungrily, greedily, eagerly drinking from Kane's own malice. All of the eyes scattered about his weapon blink, and their iris takes on the color of a long-gone enemy. In that moment, Kane can see the deceased's face in the weapon, beating up against the red steel from inside. His weapon screams in an old victim's voice and fills the room with a mighty gust. The smoke vanishes in the updraft. There's nothing standing in either's way. Kane sees Hagenti and Hagenti sees Kane.
Well, well, if it isn't the baby brother butcher himself. How have you been, Kane? Why couldn't it be the cute one? You know, your friend, the funny guy? Or maybe the big one? Just anyone but you. You're the boring one. Your parents didn't teach you manners, did they? It's rude to show up uninvited.
Hagenti runs a hand through his deep maroon hair, smoothing down any rebellious strands before taking a breath.
Honestly, you and your friends have such a talent for making yourselves quite the nuisance. That is assuming, of course, they survived as well. Please tell me they did. I'll need someone to keep me entertained after I've torn you limb from limb. I am trying to save her for later, after all.
The first time they fought, Kane couldn't land a single hit. His blade has hungered for Hagenti's blood ever since. After that battle, Kane slew many with little prejudice. Not everyone deserved to meet their end by his weapon, but Kane finds solace knowing all the wasted lives go towards eliminating scum like Hagenti.
Now, let's see. Last time I put a claw through your chest. Just now, I attempted to burn you alive. Third time should be the charm. Well, I guess I'll just have to make sure you die this time. How does decapitation sound? Does that work for you? Because it really works for me.
With that said and a final exaggerated flourish of his wrist, Hagenti's claws extend, becoming the length of short swords.
Now stand still. This'll only hurt for as long as I want it to.
Shh. Please don't cry. It's okay. It's okay. I'm here. I'm here.
When Kane looks back, he sees Hagenti walking by, his long demon tail caressing Kane's neck as he goes.
You should let me hold him. I'm absolutely fantastic with children.
Kane whips around, throwing all his weight into the swing and letting the sword carry him towards Hagenti. Seems the demon was anticipating the move, and already holding up a clawed hand to intercept the attack. Kane's oversized sword snags between two of Hegenti's extended nails. The demon seizes his gaze as the two lock in a stalemate.
Please, let's not play pretend here, Kane. We both know you're no hero, so don't make such obvious moves like one. At least keep things fresh from me, or things will go exactly like last time. Oh wait, what am I saying? That's exactly what I want.
As Kane struggles with Hegenti, the demon peers down at his weapon.
You've gotten bigger.
Kane hears the baby wail again.
Have to get him away from them.
He steps, trying his hardest to push Hegenti back. As though his weapon hears the infant's cries, it begins to glow. A deep rumble sounds through the stained red metal as it pulsates, drawing Hegenti's gaze.
Your sword. You must have taken a lot of lives with that thing, because it has a heartbeat.
Knowing the fight can't continue this close to the mother and child, Kane makes a gambit. He reaches for his pistol, but not fast enough, taking his hand away from his sword, losing precious leverage. Hegenti is presented with an advantage that the demon immediately presses. Hegenti's push is enough to send Kane careening towards the nearest wall. Kane stretches his hand out behind him and his blade glows again. A swirl of wind catches Kane, and he lands on his feet. He rips his pistol from its holster, pointing it at Hegenti. Before Kane can pull the trigger, Hegenti is on him again, using his tail to slap Kane's gun away. With Hegenti in range, Kane attacks. His sword is as heavy as it looks, so the attacks don't come quickly. A weakness Hegenti exploits. Every slash Kane makes is countered by a much quicker attack from Hegenti. When Kane swings right, there's Hegenti. When he swings left, there's Hegenti. Up, down, it doesn't matter where Kane comes from. They just end up exchanging blows. Good. He's got Hegenti in a rhythm. Those obvious attacks left Hegenti dancing to his tune. His weapon is heavy and he is slow, but magic has always been a great equalizer. Once more, Kane calls upon the name Zephyrus. Soothing air builds up around his glowing red blade before it rockets forward, propelled by a mighty gale. Suddenly, he's too fast for Hegenti to predict, and as a result, Kane manages to wound the demon, leaving a large bloody gash in the wake of Kane's first connected attack. They lock eyes. For all of a minute, the room becomes like the eye of a storm, a hurricane made from fire and blood. As Kane is able to cancel the wind boost whenever he needs to vary up the speed of his attacks, at times where Hegenti does attempt to stoke fire between them, Kane counters, cushioning the flames with Zephyrus's great winds. Confident, Kane glances to the woman with her child in the corner. She still hadn't taken the opportunity to get away. When Kane's attention returns to Hegenti, he notices the demon disengaging him. Shit. Quickly, Kane redirects the air pressure so that he won't have to commit to such a deep attack. There's no use, so Kane flexes in anticipation of the counterattack. A fine cold pain rushes through Kane's arm, tearing his muscles and shattering his bones. A scream rumbles in his throat, but never passes his lips. It takes all of Kane's will to keep himself up as he watches his arm go limp on the ground. Hegenti chuckles before kicking the arm, blade still in hand, across the room. He glares up at Hegenti, then to the scene behind him. There aren't many options now.
Go!
Next thing Kane knows, he's lifted up, suspended, Hegenti's tail wrapped around his throat. If Hegenti's to be believed, then a beheading would follow. The sound of a gun cocking behind Hegenti gets Kane's attention. He turns to look at the same time the demon does. There's the woman again. She still hadn't run. His vision is blurry, but Kane can make out her trembling form as she raises her gun towards Hegenti.
Please, I don't want to hurt you, so let us go. I repeat, I don't want to hurt you, so put him down, and please just let us go.
That's a gun, right? Mortal weapons don't work on me, but if you must try for peace of mind... All right, go ahead, shoot me. I want you to have exhausted all possible options. What? How could this? How could you? With a mere...
As Hegenti's grip loosens, Kane slips away from his tail. Hegenti's still in shock. Kane decides to use this opening. Once more he clears his mind, save for a single word, Zephyrus. Ichor, still in hand, releases a mighty gust of wind, launching itself towards its owner. Along the way, it collides with Hegenti's legs, tearing through them and bringing the weakened demon to his knees. When the sword reaches Cain, he bolts forward, eyes narrowed on his enemy. There is no hint of remorse as he drives the barbed weapon into Hegenti's back. Fear helps carry Iker through the demon. Malice hoists the demon into the air. Hegenti bleeds out like a sacrificial lamb. Only after Cain's satisfied with the puddle of ruby red beneath them does he slam the demonic mobster onto the floor. When Hegenti tries crawling away, Cain follows, steps on his leg, and stabs Iker into his back. The best thing about Iker is that it gnaws on its victims. Row after row of sharp, hungry teeth leave Hegenti no opportunity for escape. Cain pushes down with all his weight, driving Iker all the way through. Hegenti, or what's left of him, bursts into a fine red powder. The concentrated demon dust seems eager to rush into the glowing base of Cain's weapon. Iker drinks. The last ghoulish wails of the demon bounce off every wall in the room until silenced by Iker's hiss.
It's finally over.
He looks down at Iker, redder and heavier than it was when he drew it. If she wasn't afraid of him before, she is now. The soft beginnings of a cry get the woman's attention, and she drops her gun to run over to the baby. Looking around the room, Cain finds what was left in the wake of the fight, the bullets from the woman's gun. Pinching a bullet between his fingers, he holds it up to his eye and examines it. There are fine inscriptions, scripture, etched into the rounded silver. These bullets are tailor-made for killing demons. Now that Cain has a better look at her, the woman's tattered clothing is reminiscent of a Catholic nun. The way she rocks the baby in her arms tells him it's her son. She looks young, and given it's a baby, she must have only recently abandoned her beliefs, probably when the world went to shit. Iker dissipates, and his missing pupil returns. While watching the woman, Cain contemplates interrogating her, questions he should ask, but doesn't come to mind.
What were you doing here? Why do you have these kinds of bullets? Where did you get them? Who are you? Why are you able to look at me?
He watches as she rocks back and forth with that bundle in her arms. As she turns, the baby stops crying. Her hand dances up to the top of the blankets and pulls them aside. Cain's eyes widen in surprise. There's a tuft of bare brown hair atop the baby's head, and it shares its mother's shamrock-colored eyes. But that isn't what bothers Cain. He looks, even from a glance, completely human.
Yo, Cain, backup's here. You alive, man? Did we miss something?
Sighing, Cain picks up his stray limb, aligning the dismembered arm with its socket. All the feeling in his arm goes away, leaving him numb as his body begins to heal. It only takes a few minutes before sharp pains shoot throughout the once limp appendage, nerves reconnecting. The flexing of his fingers lets Cain know he's good as new. With nothing more to do, Cain sits down in a corner of the charred room and rests. In the thick of battle, hours fall faster than warriors, but on the sidelines they move like sap from a tree. Over the hours following Hegenti's demise, Judas plunders the penthouse, and Longinus converses with the woman and plays with her baby. Here and there, Cain caught pieces of information. Longinus would go on about his day as though they hadn't just slaughtered demons in droves, and she let him in on where she was headed, but not how she was getting there.
There's a safe haven up north for survivors. I'm headed there to reconvene with Jesus and...
If anything here is yours, pack it. We're going.
Can I talk to you in private? You think it's a good idea to bring her along? She looks so... soft. I'm talking about her soul, by the way. It's pure. The kind of soul you don't see anymore. She's a good person. Wouldn't fit well with the theme we got going. Not to mention she's got a kid.
That's why she's coming with. I wouldn't have beaten Hegenti without her. Her weapon is really effective against demons. She isn't bothered by my mark. What's funny?
So that's why then? The mark of Cain doesn't affect her. So you're thinking this might be the first trim you can get in what? How many thousands upon thousands of years?
You don't understand. It's only because you've been assigned to me that you can tolerate my mark. Otherwise, you and Judas would be like everyone else I've ever encountered. Aggressive, wary, uncomfortable. You wouldn't be able to be around me. But she doesn't seem to notice it. I want to know why. But these aren't even the most important reasons. That is, right there, that baby is mortal.
What? All the humans are dead, and new ones don't just grow on trees. So what makes you think he isn't an elf or whatever, like she is? Maybe his ears just haven't come in yet.
Maybe it's a hunch. Maybe something else.
Well, if we've got no choice but to bring her with, then I'm gonna say it now. Dibs.
That is the dumbest shit you've said today, and you've said quite a lot. Besides, I think a girl like her is wasted on a blind guy. So, have a name, beautiful?
It's Mary Magdalene. And this little guy here is Adam.
A long time ago, Cain might have chuckled, hearing that name. Mary looks up, and her gaze scans across the men. Cain finds her eyes on him again, only to flit away the moment his own threaten to catch them.
You're Mary Magdalene! As in that Mary Magdalene, the one my cousin dated!
Wait, so you're the one Jesus stepped in for, right? You were going to be stoned?
Please don't bring up those stories about me. You know they aren't true, right?
I don't know. You were there, weren't you, Judas? What do you say?
No, I don't know, I guess. Look, it was a long time ago, and Jesus never really brought her around too often. But hey, we were like 120% certain that they were a thing. I mean, outside of his mom, Mary was the only girl he ever really talked about. You know, it's kind of like an Oedipus thing.
It isn't true. In the Middle Ages, Western Christianity made her out to be a prostitute. None of that's from the original Gospels.
Leave it to the world's oldest man to be our walking fact checker.
Well, what about that stuff with Jesus? Is that canon or no? Hey, don't mind me. I'm just want to get things straight.
Well, Jesus was someone very important to me. In the end, I loved him more than he loved me. And he loved his duty more than anything else. Let's just leave it at that.
Oh. Yeah, sorry for bringing that up.
If this woman really is the Mary Magdalene, then like the three of them, she's lived longer than any mortal. But unlike them, he's sure that, in her case, it's more a gift than a curse.
It's fine. Judas, right? It was a really long time ago. I miss Jesus a lot, but we're kind of from two different worlds. He'll always have a place in my heart, but I won't trouble him with silly things like my feelings. Good. He's asleep. We can start moving my things. Do you three have a car?
Yeah, it's my car. Name's
Load me up. Trust me, I'm stronger than I look. You and I have a lot of catching up to do. We had a pretty important mutual back in the day. We could talk about him, then we could talk about you, and then we could talk about...
I can't wait to learn about all three of you. I don't think I caught your names, sir. Did you know Jesus too?
It's Cain. Didn't know him, heard he's great, doubt he'd like me.
I just wanted to thank you, Cain. Sir. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't shown up. I'm also sorry for shooting you in the head back there. That was my bad.
Despite living for as long as he has, there weren't a lot of people who apologized to Cain. As he's about to respond, the baby wakes up and cries.
Oh, are you hungry, Adam? Here, I'll feed you.
Mary giggles, holding Adam in one hand as she begins undoing her top with the other. Only when Cain focuses on that area does he take note of their ample size. With every button she flicks open, more of her fair skin is revealed to Cain, and, by extension, his team. Upon seeing the light lavender color of Mary's lacy bra, Cain turns away.
Stop that!
What? Is there a problem? I can't feed him here?
The car's outside, just come out when you're done.
He's known Mary for a handful of hours, and in the space of that time she's already proven herself more complicated than Judas and Longinus combined. For a moment, Cain wonders if he's biting off more than he can chew, but then he remembers the mortal, and his resolve returns.